Now for our big focus here at India Today, the instant noodle scandal has lifted the lid of India's real food story, a fear psychosis that has gripped the nation that every food on your plate could be adulterated. We bring you a special report that someone somewhere is tinkering with the food supply chain, invading our health and lives with deadly chemicals.
5 to 7% of all eggs are contaminated with the deadly Salmonella bacteria. Your daily bread may contain chemicals, mud, dust and fungus. Your milk could contain deadly chemicals and preservatives. Your fruits and vegetables may be injected with artificial color. Clearly, the noise over lead content and MSG in your favorite Maggi pack is just the tip of the iceberg. Everything you eat, literally everything, is suspect. As greed infects the entire food chain, right from the farm to your fork, harmful, dangerous, alien chemicals are secretly invading our lives. An India Today special report finds that while organizations like the Food Safety and Standards Authority have become proactive in the recent past, the Indian consumer is more or less on his own as far as adulteration is concerned, largely because of the lack of standard testing protocols. Each state has a different testing method, leading to discrepancies. Unavailability of specialized testing equipment is another hurdle. Besides, enforcement of these tests are compromised at many places. Take Rajasthan for instance. When the Maggi controversy boiled over, officials in Rajasthan took 185 samples of the 2-minute pack in a hurry. But shockingly, not a single pack has been tested till date. The inspectors belatedly realized that the state did not have the wherewithal to trace lead or MSG content in the noodles. On paper, the state has 13 government labs, but 8 of them are non-functional due to lack of staff. Rest 5 have only 3 staffers.
अभी हमारे पास 3 अधिकारी काम कर रहे हैं और 5 लैब काम कर रही है, तो अधिकारियों की नियुक्ति की कार्रवाई सरकार के द्वारा की जा रही है.
While some states like Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra are putting a food safety mechanism together, others lag behind. Rajasthan has only 6 food testing labs, most with outdated technology. India's most populous Uttar Pradesh has provisions for 17 labs on paper, but only 5 exist, and nearly 430 posts of food inspectors lie vacant. But while India gets its act together, what can you do to preserve your health? Stay vigilant, check what you buy, and from where you buy. With Damayanti Datta and Shweta Punj, Bureau Report, India Today.
Let's now go live to Mr. Ashim Sanyal, who's the Chief Operating Officer of Voice, which is a voluntary organization in the interest of consumer education. Mr. Sanyal, what exactly should be done in the present circumstances? You have a situation where packaged food, has a problem, milk has a problem, eggs have a problem. What is the way forward as far as, this mess is concerned?
Let's say it's a typical problem of Indian consumers, in fact, where the laws are in place, but implementation is lacking, whether at the central level or at the state level. You have a situation where almost 30% of the food that we eat, in fact, are in the packaged form, and unfortunately over 70% is still in the loose form. So as far as adulteration is concerned, as far as the mixing is concerned, the loose material being sold to the underprivileged class mainly, in fact, or through the midday meal scheme, are prone more to to adulteration rather than the packaged commodities. That surprising results are coming in packaged commodities because surprisingly central and state authorities are in tandem working together to get some results of surveillance mechanism which should have been in place for the last 20 years.
Absolutely, Mr. Sanyal. And, before I ask you the next question, let me quickly show you this presentation that we here at India Today have actually prepared. just take a look at how big a violator India really is. We'll put up that graphic representation in just a short while from now. India is the worst food violator. Why do we say so? Shweta, if you could just tell what these percentages actually are. I think they're the top 10% of total food products by the country of origin. And you know, whether the samples that were collected, how many of them were found to be slightly spurious or not conforming to particular norms. If you see, there is Mexico, which is at 7.5, USA at 5.4, Brazil at 4.1, Spain at 3.2, France at 5.5, a developing nation like China at 9.9. But look at India's percentage. It's 11.1%. It's whopping. That's how big a food violator we actually are. Now, this is alarming, isn't it, Shweta?
Absolutely, Sanket. And one of the primary reasons has been that India's food testing mechanism has been very outdated. And if you speak with any FMCG company, they'll tell you that, you know, complying with food regulations in India is not difficult. So India is a developing country. India has a whole host of issues to manage. So food safety has not really featured as a priority. The good thing as a consequence of this entire incident this time is that the food safety regulator is feeling more empowered, and they are going ahead and testing a lot of processed food products which were completely kept out of the purview earlier.
Shweta, are they capable? That's the point. See, as far as heavy metal is concerned, I was reading in your report that most of these labs do not have the facility, the mechanism, the expertise to actually test heavy metal.
That's true. Absolutely. They don't.
So there has to be a lot of investment, and this is a core area where investment needs to be made by the government. That's where the government's accountability actually comes in.
Absolutely. So they need investments in upgrading the infrastructure. They're also tapping into private labs, you know, which they're accrediting, which are more equipped. But then the question that comes is that who's funding these private labs?
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
That's very,
but at least there should be a mechanism to start with. Then you can actually reach the next step. We have not even crossed the, you know, level one.
But the silver lining to this is that the consumer is far more conscientious now. He's going to, you know, ask more questions, and the safety regulator is realizing that they have a tough job at hand.
He's dealing with an aware consumer right now. Mr. Sanyal, would you agree? Would you agree, and would you also feel that as far as your organization is concerned, which is in the interest of consumer education, educating the consumer now is the only way forward? We need to ask questions.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that particular point, that consumer awareness has been lacking, and there are very few organizations like us who spread the news every time that we test products, and you disseminate it through the websites and through the media, in fact. But the whole point here remains basically that even when we test, in fact, we can hardly get a choice of 2 or 3 labs which have that credibility, traceability, and you know, repeatability, as we say, as the basic tenements of testing. In fact, most of the state labs are not equipped to test it. When you talk of ppm testing, it requires equipment, it requires trained manpower, it requires a lot of infrastructure which has to be updated in the government sector before we can say that we can follow up with the Maggi issue. We can't today assure the consumer that there will be no such issues in future, because our testing systems are dilapidated. We have something called an NABL standard. Most of the private labs are following it, but within that also there has to be a credibility among the private labs.
Somehow, Mr. Sanyal, this pessimism that has actually set in as far as Indians are concerned, that nothing is going to change. Look at the entire, you know, cola episode where there was talk of pesticides. No one's talking about it. Cola companies are back and waiting for the next test where something like this could in fact appear. But at this moment, we are just waiting for something else to be exposed. The only good thing is that the consumer is more aware of the process.
Back. Let's be very clear, as a consumer organization, I would welcome all companies back, but with a fresh motto, in fact, that we will supply consumer clean
Priority should be, health concerns should be kept at the absolute top. They should be the most important parameter as far as manufacturing the product is concerned. Mr. Sanyal, many thanks for joining us at this moment. Let's quickly go across to Rajasthan, the one state that we have focused in this particular report. Let's find it from Rohit. Rohit, what is the condition of testing labs in Rajasthan? I mean, we have seen the findings in the past as well. You had filed a report also earlier. Just take us through what is the condition of those labs at this moment.
It is as bad as in any other state in the country. we have failed consumers both in surveillance as well as in mechanism. There are only 5 or 6 functional labs are there. That too are inadequately staffed. We don't have a single lab which can test the heavy metals. There are 73 food safety officers who are supposed to take 10 samples a month, but normally they take only 3,000 to 4,000 samples in a year. But yes, the results are very bad. Normally 20 to 30 samples fail the test also. But retailers, I spoke to a few retailers also, and they say, why can't government, in case they don't have adequate staff, why can't they focus more on the point of manufacturing, which is a very good suggestion. Instead of focusing on point of manufacturing, most of the time the food inspectors go to the retailers. There are thousands of retailers, but comparatively there are only hundreds of manufacturers. That is a basic issue which is need to be dealt across the country.
Absolutely. As far as Rajasthan is concerned, Rohit, you also told us earlier that of the existing food officers or food inspectors, they are supposed to collect 10 samples per officer every month, but they fall short of this target by 50% every year. That's the condition in Rajasthan, and they have no provision to test monosodium glutamate as well as heavy metals. There is just no provision in Rajasthan. But should we be really upset and just do that and nothing else? Here are the 10 things that this particular report in India Today actually highlights that you, the government, everyone together can actually do to make things better. What are those 10? What is the solution to this entire problem that we have highlighted in this week's edition of India Today in this particular broadcast? The edition also talks about the 10 ways you can fight India's ticking food bomb. Let's find out what those 10 ways actually are in this presentation that we are putting out. Point number 1. What can we actually do? How to fight India's ticking food bomb? Ensure food safety through the food chain. Now, this is the responsibility of the government. The government has to act. There needs to be greater consumer awareness, because of which you can push your government into following food safety norms through the food chain. Point number 2. Stress on good practices all the way. Good manufacturing practices, good packaging practices, good eating practices. Good practice model needs to be followed, which is in fact followed in certain countries. Point number 3, follow risk-based food inspection. So if there is a commodity which is risky for the individual, at that moment that should be specified on that particular product, like it is done in the case of tobacco products. There's a very clear warning that is actually given out. So risk-based food inspection. Point number 4, increase investment in research and development. The most important as far as our country is concerned, because we are the biggest food violator. In most cases, we have seen the apathy as far as these food testing labs are concerned. We need to invest more in these laboratories as well as in research and development in finding out newer ways to carry out tests on food products, particularly packaged products. Point number 5, shift responsibility not just on the government. For everything, the government cannot be responsible. Shift the responsibility to the government, industry, agriculture, and you and me, the consumer. We need to be more aware so that we can shift the onus back on these particular establishments. Point number 6, establish autonomous food safety standardization body. At this moment, you've got the food watchdog FSSAI, which is part of the central government, but there has to be greater autonomy so that there is absolutely no pull or pressure from any of the big corporates or MNCs that are into packaging industry. Point number 7, uniform food testing practice across all Indian states. Most important, as Shweta pointed out, every state has got its own protocol, so there has to be uniformity. Point number 8, very quickly, make FSSAI, the food watchdog, technocrat driven. It should not have retired babus. It should not be like a haven for people who have retired from other jobs, and that's why they should be there. Point number 9, increase consumer awareness initiatives, the point that we talked about. And point number 10, finally, invest in well-trained food safety inspectors. This is the most important. Your food officer has to be well-trained and well-equipped to know what exactly is he testing. Thanks very much for watching this special presentation. Do remember, you can read more about this in this week's edition